Hockey Performance Academy, and today I'm going to be speaking to Hockey Performance Academy member Kyme Rowe from Australia, who has just made the over 45s Australian Masters team. We're going to be talking about her journey to becoming a Masters International and how she overcame some of the obstacles that she's faced. Kyme, thanks so much for taking the time to come and have this chat and for sharing your story with other players as well. So maybe if you could perhaps start by sharing a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been playing, all that kind of stuff.
So from Warrnambool in Victoria, so I'm not sure whether anybody know where that is, but it's on the very southwest tip of Victoria in Australia. I've been playing hockey since I was maybe 14 or 15, so I was fairly late into it. And I think I took a little bit of time out when I was about 30 for about 5 years as well, but I've played ever since. So, and love it, obviously.
Great. And you've just been announced in the over 45s Masters International team for Australia. Fantastic, well done.
Yes, so exciting. I'm so excited. I was actually, I was gearing up and preparing myself to be named as a shadow player because I've been named a shadow player for the last 2 years, and I thought, I was standing there when they were announcing the team when they got to 45s, and I thought, you know what, I've had a really good tournament. I'm really happy with how I've played, very consistent across the 7 games that we played. And if I got named as a shadow, I would be happy with that. And if I still didn't get named in the team, I'd still be happy with that, given the fact that I was so happy with how I played. And I would have been quite content with that, and known that possibly I wasn't the player they were looking for this year. But when I didn't actually hear my name, the girl beside me who was standing there, she goes, "Oh my God, that was your name!" And I went, "Oh really?" I said, "I thought I heard it, but really, you sure?" She goes, "Go, you've got to go." So down I went, I strutted all the way down, thinking, "Oh my God!" And for a second there, I thought, "What, me? It's like really me?" I thought, actually, you know what? Damn straight, that's me, because of the stuff that I've done in the last 2 or 3 years to give myself the best opportunity to play well. So. Very excited. Fantastic.
And going back to, obviously, you spoke about 2 or 3 years ago, where were you at and how was your game at that stage in comparison? You spoke about being shadow before. Where were you at there, and what made kind of the difference this time round?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of, I think I was okay, and I think I don't think I stood out a great deal, but I think I was okay and playing an okay game of hockey. My fitness was definitely there, but I think in the last 2 years it's really resonated with me that to be able to reflect on what you've done in past games and past matches, and obviously your life as well, it builds a lot of confidence in yourself. And I think the confidence is the stuff that I've really tried to prove with myself throughout the last couple of years, stepping out, trying to take that nervousness, obviously, and trying to drive that into something that I can actually use on the field and use to my fullest capacity on the field. And I think I've been able to do that so much better definitely in the last 2 years than what I've ever had before. The fear of making mistakes and those sorts of things is a key driver, and the confidence around that. I do drive a lot of my confidence from my fitness. So when I am fit and I am feeling good and my body's responding, I tend to be able to then drive that with everything else that needs to happen. Not overthinking things and just playing for playing. And I think once players are able to get over that line and just play and just relax and be able to do what they can do and know what they can do well, it just happens. It's amazing when you can get to that point, I think.
So what you're talking about there is, you had the ability or the talent, but you were kind of maybe potentially holding yourself back in some ways in terms of the mental game. Is that what you're saying?
A little. Oh, absolutely. There was definitely that side of it, and there's definitely comparing yourself to others, I think, too, because when you first step into that national tournament and you look at everybody else around and you see the players who have. Everyone points out all the Australian players, and these players who do that, and that player has made the Australian team for so many years in a row. When you're lining up against them, it is quite daunting, I think, for the first couple of times, I guess. Then after that, when you do something or you have a really nice game, and whether or not you've been able to take the ball off them once or twice, and then the next game you continually work on yourself on actually doing that more and more and more, and you start to build the confidence around. You know what? I can actually match it with these women. And I can match it better because I'm fitter, because I think I stand out in terms of that because of my fitness, because in the top maybe 5% of who goes away, majority of the players who want to be noticed as a first-time player aren't fit. They don't go away, with that mental attitude, I guess, to go away fit and to actually show, get the best out of yourself in terms of the match stuff. But I then look at it too in terms of recovery. So once if I'm fit, I can recover, I can play. I know I'm going to be able to back myself up for the next game. I can recover and back up for another game as well. So I think if you go away knowing how many games you've got to play and making sure that you're recovering between all those games, I think you can get your best out of yourself every single game, not just think, well, I can play once or twice and play well in 2 or 3 games. I think you've got to stand out and play well in every single game.
So what you're saying is it comes down to the off-the-field preparation in terms of knowing what you need to do between those games, the mental preparation, the physical preparation, so that by the time you get there, you're feeling confident and ready.
Absolutely confident and more than ready to go, yeah. And I think, when I look back and I look at some of the players who consistently get selected, yes, some of them get selected via name, and I know, they're not meant to be selected during that. They're meant to be selected from the tournament on how they play, but some of the women, when they come in way, they're not quite as fit or they're injured, and they're still making the team. I mean, they've probably done the hard work previously as well. So, and knowing that I had to get all that process in place before I could draw from that and prove to myself that I had the confidence, I had the fitness, I've got the recovery plans, I've got the stuff that's going to help me, and I'm going to give myself every opportunity to make sure that I do well.
Yeah. I think as well, when we're working together, I know that environment is quite a key part of that as well. So I know for you, you've really committed yourself to extra travel and gone an extra mile to be able to play at a higher level. And alongside, I think there's 2 things I want to talk about here is that first thing is the environment and the travel and how much that kind of, how important that was for you to reach this goal. And the second thing is, the kind of stigma of, especially in Masters, there's a lot of politics and kind of what you're talking about there. How did you overcome that? Those are the 2 key things I would like to hear a bit more about from you.
Yeah. So I made a commitment to myself 3 years ago that I would travel to Melbourne every weekend to play in that higher competition. I did that because one of my best mates, who also consistently makes the Australian team as a striker, I wanted to go and play alongside her. Learning some skills, learning the whole realm of other different things that you do on the hockey pitch with somebody who actually is a high-level player. And I think I've obviously given myself the best opportunity to do that as well. And I've learnt so much from just everyday contact, everyday chat, talking about the match afterwards and talking about the team and what we can do better as a team. Best thing about that club hockey is we've gone through 2 years undefeated. We've played 40 undefeated matches in a row, and we've gone back to back in club championships. So that actually says something about not only how I play and how she plays, but how the whole team sort of gel together. And it's such a great environment to be around when you're supported not by just one person and the coach, but by everyone on the same page, trying to excel and try and do all the same thing as well. So, and the travel obviously is. It's a down and back. Sometimes I stay the night, but I've got to be prepared for that as well. So I've got to make sure that all the other factors that come into it, like with eating and recovery and keeping up water and that sort of stuff too. I've got to be so prepared in what I do, and I've really made sure that I've done that with huge enthusiasm. I think to make sure that I'm doing the best thing as well. So. Fortunately, my work is quite good in that regard too. So if I've got to leave work early or start late or something like that, they've been really good with me in that regard too, because they sort of live the journey with me as well. So I feel like quite accountable to what I'm doing in my life with my work and my work colleagues as well, with all my managers and all my people that I sit around, because everyone makes me accountable every day by saying, oh, what are you doing? Why are you going to the gym now? And what have you done this morning? I bet you've already been out for a 50k ride. And and it's nice because it's it resonates through them, but it also resonates so much more with me that I want to do it for myself ultimately, but also because I've got all these other people who are sitting on my shoulders who want me to do really well as well. So
that's quite a question I actually want to also ask you, is how do you balance a working life alongside the kind of training that you've gone through?
Yeah, so working full time, I just seem to manage. I think I'm an early riser, so I get out of bed early and I go on, whether I'm bike riding or running or doing something like that, or in gym sessions I've been scheduling during my lunch break, so I can go for a bit of a run up to the gym, and then I do an hour session, and I take an hour and a half or 2 hours for a lunch break sometimes, but I make up for it at either end of the day with work anyway. So and then after work, generally I like to exercise in the morning or at lunchtimes, and after work is filled up with just the hockey sort of stuff with the skill based and the session based stuff with the team. So that's not travelling to Melbourne though to train, but I've been training with the local women's team here in Warrnambool, but I also back it up with another night with the men as well. So I think that if I'm having a run around with the men, and the young boys, 20 to 30-year-old boys who are really tough and really strong, and they hit the ball really hard, and they sort of come along with the journey too, because they know that when you're turning up to do training with them, it's going to be hard, it's going to be fast, and they don't hold back. They give it to you. They're a lovely bunch of guys, and they all want to see everyone excel too. And I think most of the feedback that I've had on my Facebook has been mostly from those 20 to 30-year-old boys who have been hitting around with hockey for the last 2 years, because they love it as well. So.
And going back to the question about the politics, what are your thoughts on that? How do people break through that kind of not wanting to do it in case of all the politics and whatnot?
No, I didn't really focus on the politics. I think I just wanted to focus on, I think if you're well prepared and you're fit and you've got a good round, a solid rounded game that you're confident in doing, no matter what it is, whether you're a defender or a half-backer or playing in the midfield or a striker. I think if you give yourself the best opportunity, turning up well prepared, as I said before, and you just try not to focus on any of that other stuff, because ultimately that stuff is out of your control. And if you focus on stuff that's out of your control, I think it brings you back a little bit of a peg or two, where you think, oh, maybe those negative thoughts might start creeping in. Maybe I'm not going to be good enough for this, or maybe this year, look at all those players come back who are trialling. I just didn't. I just put all that out of my mind and thought, I'm just going to give it my all, and I really wanted to prove to myself ultimately that I was good enough, and to not think about any of that and just focus on what I had to do. And you know what? And I was happy with if I didn't get selected. I was happy with the fact that I could reflect back on myself and say, maybe I just wasn't the player they were looking for this year, but I'm going to have another crack next year and maybe do something different that I didn't do this year. Maybe I might need to change up something a little bit, but yeah, lucky enough I didn't have to at this point in time. So that, and I've got a holistic view that could be different next year. I know I'm not a shoo-in next year for a team either, so I know I'm going to have to keep improving to make sure that I consistently try and get that team, because this World Cup is what I'm after. So it's nice to play Trans-Tasman, I think, in the 3 test matches. But I really want to make World Cup. I really want to pit myself and against the best 45s in the world.
Awesome.
And see how I come up. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, obviously, you've been playing hockey for a long time. What is the motivation for you to play Masters? And when you said this 2-3 years ago, you decided that this was what you wanted. Yeah. What changed?
I think what changed for me is I was good enough, I think, as a junior, but I didn't take it seriously, and I didn't, I was sort of in and out and sort of didn't do things 100%. And I think with a marriage breakdown, 10 years ago, and putting on a bit of weight and that sort of stuff, I got to a point in my life where I thought, if I don't do something for myself, no one's going to do anything for me. I really have to try, and it's that really intrinsic motivation to do something for yourself. And I had some time out of hockey, which I was forced to do because I didn't want to have some time out. But then, when I got an opportunity with myself to think, I'm actually going to do something now. So exercise was my key mentally and emotionally to get myself sort of on track and stable in a life that I'd sort of not thrown away, but because I had a separation and things to try and work myself forward positively, rather than, a lot of people turn to drink or drugs or all this other stuff, and my addiction was exercise, because I got so much more out of the endorphins that I got at the end of it than what alcohol could ever do, I think, in terms of that. So to be able to, and it's taken a long time to get a good base level of fitness under my belt, but slowly but surely working and building my self-confidence, because I don't think I was quite as confident what I was back then to what I am now in doing things completely different in the world, I think. So getting out there, proving to people that, as a single white female, you can do whatever you want. And as a female more so now, just with all the stuff that goes on around the world. I'm so happy that I can, one, be a role model, and two, participate in sport, and three, trying to inspire others to do the same thing.
Awesome. I love it. And you know what? Even if you inspire one person watching this, I think it's worth it. So thanks for agreeing to share your story with this journey as well. I just want to go back to where you spoke about where you probably were good enough as a junior, and I can resonate with this myself. Pretty similar story there, and I think there's a lot of juniors as well, even if there are juniors watching this, that Masters is almost like a second chance, because you realise you're a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and you realise actually that I was good enough, but I was not giving that 100% effort. So what would you say on that? Is this kind of like your second chance, or to have no regrets this time?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely a second chance, no regrets. I think playing as a junior and not being able to get the best out of myself back then, for whatever reason it was, definitely didn't give 100%, and definitely didn't think, it was a worthwhile type thing to do. But, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and if I ever had my time over again, what would be different would be the exercise and the hockey more seriously, I think, in terms of that sort of stuff back then. But now, obviously, being as a Masters player and a second opportunity to be able to show and showcase what I can actually do, and actually really, I think I enjoy myself more now as a hockey player than what I think I did back then anyway, because I'm so much more committed now than what I ever was. And sure, you're possibly still playing all the same players anyway, because we're all the same age. It's nice, I think, in terms of that sort of stuff too. But I also get the other social side of it too, because it's also good to get hockey and all the exercise and all that sort of stuff too. But the lifelong friends that I've made as well, along the journey, the 3 or 4 years that I've been involved, particularly with the state team, no matter who you run into, no matter what what you're doing, everyone's always asking about your Masters and how you went at Nationals, and you catch up with people that you might not have seen for 2 years, and all of a sudden it's like it's like you've seen each other yesterday, but it might have been 3 years. It's that stuff that I really love as well. So just the connections that you get from from being involved in that sort of thing too. So.
And I think that's important, because I think back when we spoke for the first time, almost a couple of years ago, we had a goal. You set the goal and you decided what you wanted to do, but you didn't obsess about it. It was a case of falling in love with the process and enjoying the process and the journey and improving. And I think it's important that we do that, because if we only focus and obsess about the goal all the time, we forget about the steps that we need to take and the process that we have to go through. So that's kind of what I'm taking away from that. What I'm also interested to find out a bit more about, the setbacks and things. And I remember, when we went through, probably working a bit too hard. And I think this is a really, really important point as well. What have you learned from not just working hard, but learning to work a bit smarter?
Absolutely, smarter in terms of refining what I was doing to make sure that I was actually doing the right things, I think, to get the best out of myself. Obviously, recovery is the biggest one for me, is because I do like to be active. I do like to be out doing stuff, and I like to be doing stuff all the time. Sometimes 2 or 3 times a day I was working out, and I think what I did, not this year but last year, definitely, I doing way too much, and by the time I got to Nationals, I think I was tired before I even hit the ground for the very first game, which is not a position I want to be in, because you've played the whole year and you've got to play your best at the end of the year, which is really hard to do. But in terms of being able to get the process right for me this year is taking it back, working the plan backwards, I guess, in terms of where I needed to be and where I needed to be at my fittest. And really using the skills that I've learned, obviously, through the Hockey Performance Academy, to making sure that my process was quite strict to a certain extent, to where I had to be, and be playing my best hockey. I got to the end of club hockey, and yes, I was tired. I wasn't exhausted like I was last year. So there was a big difference in what I did, because I made sure I was doing more. Made sure my diet and everything was right, and I was replenishing better. I got some help through a friend doing some isogenics type stuff as well, just to make sure that I was recovering properly and getting the protein in after games, and doing certain things through the week with that sort of stuff too, to making sure that my body was ready to go again and could sustain, obviously, a high level performance too. So when I got to the end of club hockey this year, yes, I was tired, but I was still ready to go. And I counted down the games I had at Nationals. I knew I had 7 games of hockey left in me, And I thought, when I played the first one, I went, right, I've got 6 to go. So then focus on the next one. I've got, right, I've got 5 to go, and got to the grand final. When we lined up for the start of that match, it's like, I said to myself, my God, this is my last game of hockey for the year. And I'm just going to relax and enjoy it for what it is. And it didn't matter that it was a gold medal match. It was the final hockey match. So I think definitely the process working backwards, I think, and getting some, getting that assistance in between to make sure that I was right at the end of the year.
Yeah, fantastic. So you're talking about some of these things. Is there any other setbacks that you faced that you feel was kind of a crucial component to getting to this point?
I did. I had last nationals. I was seeing. Can I talk really personal?
Go for it.
Okay, so I was seeing this girl, and we'd been seeing each other for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months or so. And when I went to nationals last year in Newcastle, it was a complete meltdown for her, and put me through absolute emotional and mental hell, like almost to the point where I nearly came home. And I don't remember any of those games whatsoever through Newcastle. I just remember I roomed with my best mate who I play at the club, and to the point where she said to me, right, when we get to the ground, you give me your phone. And she had to put this process in place for me so then I could then focus on the match, because I couldn't focus on anything else, and everything was just turned completely upside down. I couldn't even tell you what the middle name was half the time, or where we were going, or whether I was coming or going or whatever, but she had to set a process in place for me to take my phone off me so I wasn't looking at really disgraceful messages that I was receiving from home from this particular woman. And 100 missed calls in a day, obviously it gets to you after a while. So I had that through that whole tournament, and when I finished the grand, we won, but I don't remember any of those games at all. I remember playing terribly. I remember just doing the very basics and couldn't even trap the ball half the time. And when I finished that and I ended the relationship when I come home, I thought to myself, there is no way on God's earth that no one is ever going to do that to me again. And I need to go away this tournament and prove to myself, one, that I can do it, and I can do it without any of that other stuff going on as well. Because I just wanted to have a tournament where my body was right, I was confident, everything else around my personal life was spot on. And I knew if I just played the way that I know I can play, I knew I would be right for giving myself opportunity for the national stuff. So when I got to this game when my name was read out, part of that was, you know what, I proved to myself that I could do it, and it was all the mindset stuff. Just trying to focus when I stepped over that line, making sure that I was doing the right thing at that point for what I was living in the moment, just doing what I had to do. So it was I had quite an emotional release once it was all done, and I got home. I had to wait till I get home from it for it, and I had this big emotional release, and it just felt like the whole weight of the world come off my shoulders with my name being called as well. So wow. I'm so happy with myself that I could get through it for one. But I'm able to. I love the fact that I can reflect on what she did and how she made me feel, but I feel so much more confident now knowing that, you know what, no one will ever do that to me again.
Wow.
So
very inspiring, and well done for getting out of that, because I think it's, yes, we're talking about hockey here, but I think we're looking at you as an individual, and that's kind of what I try and do as a coach, is to try and understand you as an individual, because these things do affect us when it comes on the field.
Absolutely. Everything does.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it's a relationship or whether it's, work or whether it's other stuff going on, as you know, yes.
Absolutely. So, I think well done for kind of owning and standing up to that and being willing to work on that. I think it's very easy to accept certain things and, be hard on ourselves and dwell on these things, but I mean, you stood up and fought it.
Don't get me wrong, there were moments where I did dwell on it, and there were moments that I overthought everything and did all that, but ultimately, no, I wasn't going to let anything get to me. I went back and I did those first 4 modules. I've done those very first 4 modules, I think, about 10 times, and I do them as a lead-in, as a process anyway to nationals, because I like to get my mind in that headspace before going away as well. So I like to revisit and reflect back on how I was feeling previously and then how different it is the following year. So, and I think I get more and more out of them every time I watch them anyway. So.
And what do you think has kept you going? You know, what's motivated you through all of this? Because I'm sure there would have been, you know, a few down patches. What got you through that?
Yeah. I think the biggest part was proving to myself that I could overcome it, and that I think majority of people would just throw in the towel and just think, you know what, it's all too hard, I just can't be bothered. I don't have that. I've got a real key driver within myself. I'm really dedicated to when I put my mind to it. I think, you know what, this is what I want, and nothing within reason will stand in my way to achieve my goal. So, and goal obviously for one to start with is making the team for real, not just to be named as a shadow player. But as I said, you know, previously before, now the goal is obviously to continue to make the team. So continually keep developing, and I know that I've got to do that. I just don't know what I have to do at this point in time. So I don't know what they're going to look for, obviously, in the following year. But I just have to try and just keep improving and keep doing what I'm doing and keep making sure that I'm well prepared every time there's a tournament that comes up.
And I guess that's where the reflection process is important as well, to make sure that you're on the right track, look at what's working and what obviously can be improved on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't keep improving, everyone catches up at a certain point, don't they? And, you know, you've just got to keep improving on what you're doing yourself, whether that's, you know, adding a few extra skills or, you know, doing some of the more mental training and the mindset stuff and the confidence building stuff. I think that's the key for me, is the confidence stuff and the, you know, not to overthink when you make a mistake and that sort of stuff, but, you know, you're just making sure that you don't make the same mistake over and over again. So,
I think that you've done the hardest part in the sense of getting there. The next challenge, like you said, is maintaining it. So, you know, mentally, you know you have what it takes. It's just about keeping that belief and keep raising the standards, which, as you go higher up, it becomes more and more about the mental part of the game, because the skill level is more or less on par with other players, especially because you've played for so long. So it really becomes about the small percentages. You know, I speak from experience. I don't know if you agree.
I absolutely agree. Yes, I think you know, to hear it resonate from you, particularly knowing your story too, and it's quite a well-known story, obviously, about the setbacks that you've had, and then where you've been able to then achieve after your setbacks as well. I mean, you probably had the pinnacle of all setbacks when it's been, you know, so many, you know, leading to major tournaments too, where I might have only had one or two that I've had to deal with in quite on a completely different scale, not injury related, but more, you know, the emotional sort of blackmail sort of stuff. But yeah,
exactly. And you know what I mean, I would take that a step further and say the injury was probably caused from a lot of the mental stress and pressures that I put myself under. So I honestly believe most setbacks, some are uncontrollable for sure, but there are certain, most of them are our own beliefs and our own limiting barriers that we put in the way.
Firm believer that and I get myself hooked on these sneaky sessions that I think if I'm out, you know, at 5:30 while other people are, you know, still asleep, I'm actually doing something that's actually better, or doing more things, giving myself more opportunity to do things while other people still might be sleeping or might be having a day off. And I think, you know, I'm going to still do that sneaky session. I'm going to go to the gym at lunchtime, and, you know, and sometimes I do have to force myself to you know, not a lot of the time, but quite occasionally I get there and I think, you know what, I can't be bothered. But then I go and put my gym gear on, I think, I still can't be bothered. I'll just run to the gym and see how I'm feeling. And I get to the gym after I've had a little run, I think, oh, I'm right now, it's fine.
Hardest part is starting.
But then, you know, if I'm still feeling it 15, 20 minutes later, it just means, you know, I think I've learnt now that, you know, maybe I do need to have the afternoon off and not do anything the following morning and have a sleep in. So I think I'm recognising that a little bit better, but whether or not I'm actually putting that into practice is two different things, so I don't know.
So wrapping up then, what advice would you give to other players that maybe were in a similar situation, maybe not exactly, you know, your situation, but maybe even, you know, where you were 2 or 3 years ago, that kind of, that shadow position or just short of where you wanted to get to? What advice would you share with them?
I think I definitely not to give up, and I think just to try and find that you know, that 1% thing that's actually going to be the key for those people to continue to do what they do. I mean, it's so easy, I think, to give up and think, you know, maybe I'm not good enough. But, you know, I at some point thought that, but I just kept going, and I just wanted to prove to myself that I could actually do it. and I just had that intrinsic drive just to continue to do what I'm doing, because eventually I was going to break through, and I had a firm belief that eventually I knew I would get there, but it was just going to be a matter of time. So it's just trying to be dedicated with your goal and just sticking at it, no matter how long it takes you to do it. It eventually will come through, because if you believe it will, it definitely will. So
exactly. So start with yourself is what you're saying, and your own beliefs, and challenge the doubt that you're having.
Absolutely challenge that, and just always know that no matter what anybody else thinks, it doesn't matter what they think. Their thoughts are out of your control. What you can control is how you think about it and what you do to prepare yourself for it. So you always just need to be mindful that it's all about you to a certain extent, that you've just got to give yourself the best opportunity to do it.
I think how I like to summarise that, and I like to use this with particularly with new clients that I work with, is it's not a question of am I good enough? That's a bad question. No. And the question is how can I become good enough? And that's solution focused. Otherwise you get a yes and a no answer, which is not going to be good either way. Because if it's a yes, you're not going to work hard enough. If it's a no, you're not going to work hard because you don't believe in yourself. So figuring out how you're going to do this is the key. So having the goal, and you're not going to have all the steps straight away, but you need to start with the end goal so that you know what needs to happen in order to get there.
Absolutely, and the support, obviously, the support on the way was a key one for me too. So, having spent the time with you as particularly the one-on-one sessions and the weekly stuff, that really resonated with me more so, because it was a chance not only to do the modules and get through the learning of the process and what we had to do and all about the mindset and everything like that, but it was to be able to then just chat about it, and then have the belief from somebody who's been through it with you, and have the credentials that you've got to say, actually, you believe in me. So why aren't I giving myself the best opportunity? If you believe in me and look at you, why can't I do it? Well, I can do it. So, and I did do it. So,
Very inspiring. Really, really awesome. Thank you so much for being so open and honest. I think it's really, really great to see what's kind of happened over the last couple of years, and to actually, like you say, be so proud to have reached this goal. Final question.
Absolutely. Yep.
What do you think makes a great hockey player?
Ooh. Well, it's your perception, I guess, but I think my belief is around your dedication to what you need to do to improve, and the process behind that. I think you need to be spot on with knowing how you're going to get the best out of yourself, whether that's physically and or mentally. Putting a process in place for that, and being prepared to do the work, I think is a big one too. So being dedicated to it, being passionate about what you're doing, not selling yourself short. And yes, you're going to make mistakes along the way. The game is a game of mistakes. It's a team who makes the less mistakes, I guess, who always comes forward. Being prepared to do the work, I think, in the background, and taking the criticism, or not, some good constructive stuff on board, to making sure that you're checking in on yourself, I guess, is what I was looking for to say.
And I think, people have different ways in terms of reaching their goals, and different personalities and that kind of thing. Not everyone has the time that you have to maybe dedicate or to travel. But it's about recognizing, I think, as well, playing to your strengths, working on the things that you're good at and making them really stand out. And nowhere in there did you say anything about skills. Skills are the easiest thing to teach. And especially masters, but even if you look at the top national players, a lot of them are just exceptionally good at the basics. Yes, there's a bit of fancy stuff in there, 20% of the time, but majority of it, in fact, I would even say 90% of it, is just exceptional basics, good understanding of the game, situational awareness, so that you can use the skills that you have at the right time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And it's one of the guys who used to play for the Australian team, 20 or 30, 40 years ago. He said it was always the guys who stood out the best were the ones who could do their basics and do their basics well, because that's obviously what falls. When you're under pressure, that's what falls away. And if you don't have good basics, then you can't even survive in what you're trying to do. So,
well, thank you so much. It's been awesome to catch up with you. And like I said, thank you once again for sharing your story. I'm sure it will inspire many a player around the world. And I look forward to catching up. You're obviously working towards April now for the Tasmania, is it?
Trans-Tasman. 3 test matches against New Zealand in the Gold Coast.
Fantastic.
In April.
So go and check it out if you are in the area. That will be awesome to get some extra support. But,
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone ever wants to come and have a game in Warrnambool, give me the address of the hockey pitch.
Awesome.
If you want to come and do the challenge with me, the hitting challenge that you do with your other Olympic hockey players, I'm sure we could rust a few people up to come and take you on at some point.
Bring it on. I love a challenge.
Okay.
Cool. All the best with everything, and we'll catch
Good
up
on you.
soon.
Thanks, Lauren.
Absolute pleasure.
Yep, sounds good.